welcome everybody to the Blustream training webinar. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Mark here, J 21st Century. And today we have Jason Fitzgerald and Randy Logan is also here with RTI, who will be training us on all of the award-winning Blustream lineup of products and technology. I think, Jason, you're the commercial product manager of AV. Is that right?
Yeah, I manage a lot of the AV products, so there's
okay.
a lot of AV.
Of course, we have this webinar recorded, so you'll be able to check it out after the fact. It'll be on our virtual conference center. If you have any questions, go ahead and type them in. So, Jason, I really appreciate you being here and giving us the breakdown of all of the Blustream technology for AV distribution and products that go along with it. So I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Okay, so let's dive in. So my name's Jason Fitzgerald, product manager with Blustream here in the Americas, in the US market. So I will point this out. I do speak quickly sometimes, although, you know, I will definitely try to keep it at a normal pace. I do speak for long periods of time without seemingly taking a breath from what I've been told. There's a lot of product here, right? Blustream has been in the market for now, you know, well over a decade, I would say. And so, and as we go through this lineup, you know, you can see that the brand started out in Australia over 10 years ago. You're going to see a lot of product. And so, and since this is going to go on for close to an hour, or roughly maybe even up to an hour, if you see something, definitely jot it down, right? These are things we can follow up on, because as a first touch point for the brand, there's going to be, like I said, a ton of different categories. In fact, we're not going to even be able to cover all the categories that we're going to, you know, that Blustream can manage here today. So definitely see something, jotted down. And this is something, of course, 21st Century can follow up on. This is something we can, of course, follow up on as well. Because like I said, there's a lot of product. And that's really where the value is of Blustream, is in the fact that we can cover all sorts of different kinds of solution, right? The brand got started out, like I said, in Australia over 10 years ago, starting out mainly really with products that you guys are probably familiar with, right? HDMI distribution using things like HDBaseT, and this is, of course, then led into things like video over IP, which is very prevalent today, and we've got some products, we'll talk about that. And then all the parts and peripherals, right? Audio distribution products that help us kind of complete that all-encompassing solution, and the bits and parts and pieces that really help complete, you know, the last bits. So I get the question a lot, well, why Blustream? So let's look at a couple of those points. And first and foremost, it is, as I've mentioned, a complete distribution of AV signal management, right? So we can cover everything from residential, live event, corporate, hospitality, education. So all these markets certainly is somewhere where Blustream is saturated today. And we'll see in a little bit, you know, just one of the big solutions that Blustream has been able to provide, which is probably our largest to date, just to give you an example of where Blustream is being used today. And a lot of our product really is based on our partnerships with technology manufacturers. So these technology guys that you see here, HDMI, HDBaseT, you're certainly maybe familiar with, maybe SDVOE if you've been doing anything with video over IP, and certainly, of course, things like Dante and Dolby and DTS, right? So we build these relationships with these technology manufacturers, which then lead us to building product that we know are premium products that we price very specifically, especially in the Americas, to be very competitive, right? So we're not always the most inexpensive solution, but then again, we're very focused on how we develop these products to ensure that the features that you are using are really what you need, and you're not getting a lot of the extra fluff. I mentioned a second ago the fact that we're in a large number of projects. Some of them here, I've got another slide that's got a lot more shown on there. But in addition to that, if you can't get the support that you need, either during pre-sales, during the actual installation itself, or post-sales, you can have the best product in the world, right? But if you can't get the support when you need it, that's where things fall flat, right? And so Blustream has really invested in being a, you know, technology and industry leading in terms of being able to, you know, relay that information and things like the advanced learning portal and the fact of our tech support lines. And we'll talk about that here as well. And of course, the fact of being in stock, right? Why Blustream? Well, I can tell you during the pandemic, during that time where a lot of people were working from home, you know, businesses slowed down, but Blustream was able to remain in stock with about a 90 or over 95% in stock, you know, a performance level by keeping good partnerships with these technology manufacturers. For example, we purchased 10,000 Dante chips, which helped us keep the Dante lines running pretty consistently during that time. Now, the other why, we look at this, what we call the triangle of success. And these really need to be the cornerstone of every business, right? What we call features, value, and reliability. But this reliability really is the base of this triangle for a reason, because if the product doesn't perform well, and with a less than 1% defect ratio or factory defect ratio, this ensures that your products operate in a 24/7 capacity. In some installations, this is a necessity, right? Mission critical. And of course, the features that are built into these products as well. We do like to look at an ASIC or LSI or port processor or other chip and not necessarily open everything up, right, on a particular chip or what it can do. But we look at, again, specifically what our customers are looking for, and then making sure we build a product focused on the things that we know that they'll use. And you'll see this in a lot of the products that, you'll find things like audio breakout capabilities, but then, at the same time, we work with high technology, not necessarily opening everything up initially, but again, just building to what you need. And this in turn then relates to value, right? Because then you're not paying for things that you don't need. Because while a chip can do a lot of things, which is great, but if we open everything up, that means adding additional cost to product, because we're adding different I/O onto a box or different logic, having to put down processors and other things that may not be necessary. All right. Now, again, all well and good to have this triangle of success. But at the end of the day, having a great product, having support, right? We need to be able to control everything. And from what you can see here, right, we make sure to coordinate and partner with a number of different control manufacturers. Like in the US, we're very closely tied with the RTI. And so the products natively integrate into the RTI platform, which means we work very well with RTI. And of course, we play nicely with everyone else, we like to say. But you'll find drivers directly available on the Blustream website, and through some of our partners who have helped us build this driver catalog for platforms like Crestron, QSC, Nice, which used to be the Elan platform, Control Force Savant. The list goes on and on. In fact, this list isn't exhaustive. There's certainly a lot more other control platforms that we support. But just know that, for a project that you're working on, you need to have that control capability. And Blustream makes sure that we have the drivers that'll work for that control platform. Now, when we look beyond that, of course, when we talk about, where Blustream is, because they were started out in Australia and then moved into the APAC territories, into the UK, then in Europe, and finally now into the US, that 10-year history has given us the, ability to build on, or work with some very, prestigious, locations and prestigious projects. And the one that I will talk about, because I don't want to dive into all those different ones, is really the Olympics, right? And what better installation is there to talk about? Because these are large systems, right? Partnering with the OBS, we were able to start out with the Winter Games in 2018, where that system was a 100 by 800 video over IP system, right? So multiple venues, all interconnected via fiber optics. And I do like to say this about, doing an installation or a project like this. You either do it well, and you were asked to come back, and you can see we subsequently then did the Tokyo Games, Beijing, and we're prepping up really for Paris, where for the next 188 days, we will be supporting OBS in getting the Olympics, both pre and during, and of course post that event. Will be on site for that. So the largest one actually happened out in Tokyo, and that system ended up being, roughly 200 by 1,400 endpoints. So these are large systems, and a lot of times, actually, what really ends up happening is this system doesn't get all interconnected and checked. We can check every venue individually, which is great, and we can make sure our equipment is working properly. But the day before the opening ceremonies, where everything gets kind of turned on and then connected, so they need to ensure that this product is going to work. And I'm thankful to say that throughout every one of the Olympics that we've been at, we've had zero failures. Well, I shouldn't say zero. There was actually one instance where someone had pulled out or yanked out an HDMI connector and ended up breaking the connector on the unit itself. But even in Tokyo, in the Summer Games, right, we had units that were sitting out directly in the sun, enough to where the silk screens were actually being discolored but the unit still performed 100%. These are working on an ASIC that are, very specific to their application, so they're not FPGA based, where they generate a lot of heat. There's typically some kind of acting cooling solution, but this was really, and again, the application for this was to drive their media commentary, right? So the broadcast feeds from a particular venue or all the other venues could be accessed in the basically media commentary booths amongst all the different venues that were there on site, right? So a very big project. So we like to say we can cover everything from certainly a residential home to a small city. Now, from a support perspective, right? I mentioned this earlier. This is very important, right? We need to have the ability to support our customers, whether it be our distributors like 21st Century or even end users who, they're on a project and they need to get a hold of someone quickly. So we offer something called 24/6 support, right? Where you can call us during our normal operating hours and get someone, but we all know we're on a job at 6 a.m., possibly in the morning, or even 7 or 8 a.m., 8 p.m. at night. You want to talk to someone? No problem. We're interconnected with our global team in the UK and Australia to be able to provide support that you can call and talk to a real person if you need to. There's another great feature directly located on the Blustream website, and this goes for all the different territories. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's something called a live chat feature. So you can hop on there. You can directly kind of get in and start a chat up that usually then converts to a support call, or if you have a general inquiry about a product or a feature, if you're specifying something, no problem. That's one of the best ways to get a hold of us, because that live chat gets pinged out to everyone. So product managers and tech support guys and everyone within the organization gets pinged out, right? So we're typically clamoring over to answer these questions. So the response time usually is very quick, right, to get an answer. And that's important because a lot of times you just need to know quickly, like, hey, I'm having trouble with this HDBaseT extender. This is my scenario. I'm trying to plug everything in. What's the problem? And we can get on there and convert that to a call, or even just over chat, help you work through that, right? And give you best practices and show you what's the best method of doing everything. So definitely use that feature. And of course, this goes for post-sales as well, right? So we talked about from the support side, pre-sales, we're regularly getting, and I regularly get across my desk, a lot of schematics and installations, and you want someone to have a pair of eyes to take a look at it? No problem. Give us a call, contact us. We can certainly help that. And of course, we are here supporting 21st, where they can certainly contact us as well. If you're with them and you say, hey, we've got this installation, what do? We can help select the best product and tell you what will work well in a particular installation, right? In addition to that, we have something called the Advanced Learning Portal. Now, what this is a great resource, not only for, obviously anyone who wants to just learn more about technologies, but when you want to take a tech and you want to make a B tech, an A tech, or you just want to know what's going on, for example, a particular technology, Blustream has an advanced learning portal. You can sign up. It's for free directly on the website. You just put in your information and you'll get some credentials to go in. And there are over 50 courses, online courses that'll give you general knowledge. So this isn't Blustream pitching you on product, right? And there are some product that's in there, but it'll tell you what HDMI and how HDMI works. What's 444 versus 420, 422 chroma subsampling, right? Or if you want to know how multicast functions, right? Because that's primarily how most video over IP today is actually being used. There are different methods, but that's the primary one. That information is there. So utilize this, right? Definitely get on there. If you want to brush up on what's been going on in the industry, great. If you want to get someone who a new employee who wants to get on and you want to teach them the basics, sign them up, and it's free. Absolutely free. So this is a way for Blustream for us to impart this knowledge and to share that with you. It's free. It's out there. Right? And we don't want to be the gatekeepers of any information. We want to make sure all that information is out there, because the more information you have, the better you're going to be. So let's talk about solutions, right? What kind of different solutions does Blustream have? And I mentioned earlier before, we encompass or circle these things around technologies. So if you take these technologies, you'll see all the different categories of products that kind of orbit these technologies for USB, HDMI, or AV over IP, right? That's kind of planet and moon kind of, the way this diagram is set out. So there's a lot of product here. Right. In fact, easily over 100 SKUs, probably over 150 at this point. And the way that we categorize them, not typically you'll see them based on, a technology. But in some cases we do, like Dante, and other times we'll call it out by a specific application like an extender, or, a category like video over IP, right? We've taken a long time in the last decade to really, if you go to the website, you look at products, they're very much spread out in terms of, either technology or based on an application, right? Because we've done this for such a long time, we try to make it easy to find everything on that website, right? So we're going to take a look at some of the main categories today, right? We won't go into everything. Like I said, there's a lot of product. We'll save those for another session if we need to, or if we want to. And we'll start talking about. And the first thing we'll go into is HDMI extenders, right? And why HDMI extenders? So I'll preface it with this. There's that cough, right? So within any organization like Blustream, who's in the business of AV signal management, I distill this down into, what I call the 5 tenets of signal distribution, right? So a company to be successful in this, in this endeavor needs to have product that covers these 5 tenets. And these amount to extension, splitting, switching, matrixing, and conversion, right? We need to have these 5 different categories, really, or tenants, because each of these are important, aspects of an installation, right? Or a project, right? We need to extend something. We need to split a signal 1 to many. We need to do many to 1 for switching. And matrix is a combination of those 2, but it's its own category because matrix are so prevalent. And then conversion is a very broad category, right? Because conversion can mean doing, converting resolution or chroma subsampling types, frame rates, etc. So it's very broad. But when you start combining some of these tenets together, you start to find more application-specific products. So, for example, we know, like in a lot of residential applications, you need the ability to matrix signals, right? You got a lot of set boxes, a lot of displays, but you also are probably not going to have those displays within the distance limitation that HDMI has, right? Like a cable is going to get you maybe 20, 25 feet, 50, 60 if they start incorporating other technologies with it, but you need to extend it. So when you build a box of those 2 different solutions together, you get something that's more application specific, right? So Blustream has, of course, all these categories. Extension is one of the most important ones. Why? Because we need to get a signal from point A to point B. I kind of mentioned that a second ago with, cable limitations, and that is a big thing because most signaling types, especially HDMI, and we can get into the nitty gritty of why TMDS and signaling is not so efficient. And we can only go 10, 15 feet. In fact, the spec when 2.1 initially came out, it was like 2 meters. Well, at 2 meters, that's great. You got a Blu-ray player to a TV, that's about as far as you're going to go. But we know that a lot of times, most of our equipment is in a rack, in a basement, somewhere else where we need to extend that out. So extension is a very big category. I like to call it the AVCs, right? And not the ABCs, but the AVCs. So that's audio, video, and control, right? That's an important side because we need to control those displays and sources. And so you'll find a complete lineup of products that cover this, signal extension just in general. Products specifically that can go anywhere from 40 meters all the way up to 150 meters. Like I said, there's quite a few here, and it covers different transport types. We can do things like HDMI and USB for things like KVM applications, right? We need to, extend a keyboard and mouse out because we want to control something like a computer in a commercial environment, or we need to deal with something like ARC. So we have products, of course, that support ARC or audio return channel on the back end. All right. So there's a number of different, not only different types of extension in terms of differences using different, solution platforms, even coaxial, but also in the sense of different kind of connectivity standards like HDMI, USB-C coming up very soon, and of course DisplayPort and VGA. So the first solution we'll talk about here really is one of the bread and butter SKUs for Blustream. This is a product that we sold in the tens of thousands globally, and it is a tried and true, HDBaseT extender. It supports up to 70 meters at the longest distance at 1080p. And this particular product can do 4K 60 at a 420 chroma subsample. So again, for most of your basic extension needs, this gives you the essentials, right? It gives you HDMI extension. It gives you IR. It is highly competitively, priced in terms of really the product that we know from a volume standpoint is one that gets sold in and out. And I've had discussions with dealers who literally walk into, some of our distros and pick up 30 at a time, and they keep these on the back of the truck because it's an everyday warrior, right? A product that is used every day. And we start moving up the lineup from there into some more advanced solutions, kind of a good, better, best scenario. You'll see our Hex 70 or our CS lines. And this is when we start incorporating some technologies that give us the ability to do full 18 gigabits, right? And I'll talk about that in a second. But when we're doing things like, we need HDMI extension at 4K, 24 frames, right? And then we're including things like HDR on there. A product like this really gets us there. And you can see this one's got a lot more I/O on it because, again, we know the applications where this product is going to go into in a residential home. We've incorporated, for example, if you look at the transmitter here, there's actually a splitter already built in because we know a lot of times, listen, we've got a source device. Maybe it's an Apple TV, right, that we're plugging. We want to use it directly within a room, right, or a zone, and we want to bring that up to we want to bring it up to the display itself. But we have an integrated splitter, so you can do that. Plug it into a transmitter, connect it up to the display directly itself, and then extend that out because you want to bring that maybe into an ecosystem, into a home. So you're going to bring it down to a rack or a matrix where you want to distribute that signal out. So there are a lot of scenarios where having a splitter, and we see this a lot, where it's like, I need a splitter because I want to break out the audio from this device. I want to stick it into an AVR, right? That HDMI port can be used for all sorts of things. And then again, I mentioned a while ago, and so hopefully you remember I talked about audio breakout, but again, this has that audio breakout capability again in either 2-channel format or digital format for Dolby and DTS. That is, of course, there from a coaxial input. But again, moving up that line, you'll see we have these additional features that bring it up to a better proposition when you need those functions like a splitter and audio breakout, right? Then moving beyond that, right? If we move up category, I've got this slide here, and Randy knows this. I could talk tech all day long, but I bring this up because I mentioned technology and the partnerships that Blustream has with technology, and HDBaseT, of course, is one of them. In fact, HDBaseT, their 3.0 specification that you see here is the latest. In fact, if you're not using this chip, and that goes for anybody, that's us, Geffen, Crestron, Extron, Vanco, AB Pro, whoever. If you're not using this chip, you have to compress the signal to give us full 18 gigs, because HDBaseT to date just tops out at about 10 gigs. So, and there are ways to do this. In fact, that CS line we just talked about includes chroma subsampling, right? It's a compression method. But for those uncompromising situations where we want the best of the best, you have to be using the latest technology. And this gives us that promise of full 18 gigs uncompressed, right? And there's a number of different features that HDBaseT 3.0 gives us. Know that Blustream was probably the first to get certified with Valence globally. So this is all the brands that you can think of for an HDBaseT 3.0 solution. And we've been doing a lot of cool things with this, which I'll show you a little bit later. But know that this is a solution that gives us that promise of what HDBaseT was years ago of giving us uncompressed 1080p, now in a 4K flavor, right? So HDMI at 18 gigabits uncompressed. So when we saw this and we got this chip, it's like, okay, listen, there's a lot of functions that we can do on this. Well, what did we do? We only put in the I/O, of course, that we knew that most people would be using. So we came out with this first, the Hex 18G kit. And this gives us the things that most integrators need when you need an HDMI solution. You've got HDMI extension, of course. You've got your control signaling with IR and RS-232 functionality. And that's great. That'll cover majority applications where previously you were using a non-HDBaseT 3.0 solution. Now you can get that uncompromising. If you want Dolby Vision, the full Dolby Vision, I'm not talking about the low latency mode where it's using basically the source decoding. This is full decoding at the endpoint. You can do that using this product, right? And you got to be very careful, because I've seen this kind of marketing from a lot of other competitors where it's like, oh, we do Dolby Vision. Well, which version of Dolby Vision is it actually, right? And there are caveats to using, one or the other. But no, this is a full solution. This is essentially, for all intents and purposes, a transparent cable. It is that same promise that they had before with 1080p, like I mentioned before. Now, after this, we knew that there were other applications that can benefit from the features of this. And then we came out with this, the Hex 18G ARC kit. Now, you can see there's a number of more I/O on this device. We've got USB. We've got USB, so much USB on here. You can actually flip the direction. So this is something that's more commercially oriented that you'd see more in a conference room. Let's say we've got a smart display or a whiteboard kind of display where the source is actually built into that unit. You still want to extend from a conference room application, maybe content to that display, but you need to control it, right? Because you've got a UC platform built into it, like Teams or Zoom or something like that, or whiteboard function. Well, we can flip the direction that USB goes on here. So I can control that display while still having the ability to send video forward along with all the other control capabilities. So there's a lot of I/O here, and we could talk about this one for quite some time, but I do this so you can see some of the reasoning of why Blustream does some things. We have a product that is great for every day using the same chip, and then another product like this, which of course opens things more up, but again was designed for specific applications. Now, beyond extenders, we'll look at something called AV Essentials. Now, these are the parts and pieces, what I like to say, get the job done, right? So these are the everyday pieces that encompass your basic, HDMI kind of solutions that, splitting and switching. But in addition to that, these are the bits that sometimes call them widgets. I like to call them problem-solving devices that really help complete that last 5% of the job. You need something, for example, an A to D conversion or D to A. You need a delay, audio, for example. Blustream has a number of different solutions for this, including some very unique ones, which we'll take a look at here in a second. So as I mentioned, part of this category are going to be your basic splitters and switches. And of course, we have 2x1s and 4x1s, and then 1x2s, 1x4s, so splitters. And these all just amount to increasing the number of inputs that you can connect to a particular device, right, in terms of a switcher. In fact, like TVs we have, our switchers essentially. You got one screen, you're switching between inputs. Right. And then splitters, on the other hand, are the opposite, right? So we need to take a singular source, we need to spread it to multiple displays. So the larger ones, like the 1x8, you'll typically see being used in more commercial applications, because you got 8 displays in the back of a wall at behind a brick and mortar store that you want to address and have all the same sources. We certainly have these. These are part of those 5 tenets I mentioned earlier that really are Lego blocks that you use typically with other products to complete a solution. Things like also signal management. So there's always on a job, we're getting situations where, listen, you know what? We've got a handshake problem between these two devices. In fact, this recently happened between a Blustream device and a particular device that ended up splitting a signal out. It was a splitter, where a product like a signal manager like this basically allows us to kind of renegotiate that handshake. It's a device that stores EDID. I won't talk about that, but basically EDID is how we tell a source device what we're capable of or what a device is capable of. We store that here along with renegotiating a handshake. So this one device alone, signal management, helps us fix a number of different issues that we run into in the field. Things like clock stretching. You may have heard that if you try to ever extend like a satellite box using HDBaseT. We've certainly seen issues with that. But we have this, and in fact, the categories themselves for these devices, you'll see we've actually got a couple different solutions for signal management, including things like scalers, where we need to take things in and out. Another part of this, and it's kind of a subcategory, is audio extension and conversion, right? We a lot of times need to extend either analog or digital audio, or sometimes ARC. Now that is becoming more prevalent, and so there's a wide range of audio extension products and audio conversion products that we have that Blustream can offer. The one I will talk about today, because again, a lot of solutions, is this one here. And this one, since its inception or introduction, has been one of the fastest selling SKUs for Blustream in terms of audio or AV essentials. Now, this is the Cat 100 eARC. All right. So what is this? Well, we live in a world today, we know, where we are dealing with smart TVs. In fact, smart TVs has come such a long way where, I'd say 5 years ago, I'm still probably wanting to put an Apple TV or an NVIDIA Shield or a Roku device, in a main point where it can be distributed. But a lot of times now, these smart TVs today are able to really almost compete in many cases, from a GUI perspective, from a performance perspective, the stuff that's built into your smart TV, with some of these devices, it's still not as encompassing, but they are getting close and they will continue to get closer. So now that your TV is your audio source, how do I get that back to a rack for distribution? Well, you're going to want to extend it. So in the original days of HDMI 2.0, where we had, ARC capability, 2.1 really bring eARC to the forefront. If you're familiar with eARC, which I'm betting some of you are, gives us the ability to now transmit, the high bitrate formats that you're used to hearing, like Dolby Atmos and DTSX. So this is a dedicated extender, right? Not something that's built into another extender where we've seen before. It's not just an ARC. This is eARC, right? That we can extend from point to point. So getting that audio to a soundbar, back to a rack, an AVR, this is a product that will do it. So not only that, it's got optical capabilities. So if we want to do something over optical, we can actually bring this out farther than we can with a product within our own lineup, which is the Cat 100 extender, or AU, the extender that we have that does digital audio extension at 100 meters. This will do 200 meters. But the main point of this product, obviously, is the fact that it can do eARC and eARC extension, right? So definitely something to kind of take a look at. The HD11C TRL is another signal manager I will briefly talk about, but it is certainly kind of a unique lineup or unique product within the line, just to kind of give you an idea of where our minds are at in some of these products. The HD11C TRL was designed to fit into any kind of installation where we want some kind of automation capability. And a lot of times we see this on budgets where it's like, hey, you're going to get the control solution, but you know what? We don't have the budget to address every single room for control. This gives us the ability to put an inline HDMI controller where HDMI plugs into here, and that is used as a trigger. So when it plugs in or turns on, right? I'll give a huddle room as an example. It's a little bit more commercial oriented, but I've got a huddle room where I want to plug in my laptop for presenting. It'll shoot out CEC commands or serial commands or IR commands to turn that display on. Additionally, we can drop a projector, screen. We can close the shades via relay, etc. But just know that you have basically a miniaturized control platform that's designed to set up a room just by plugging in a device, right? From an HDMI device. So the applications for this are wide: education, obviously corporate, which we talked about. But I've even seen people use this, they want some kind of automation in a home, or, I just want to plug in something, make sure everything gets turned on. You can easily do that using this device as a trigger, and it's fully capable of being programmed. There's a new version of this coming out very shortly that adds an IP interface, so you can control the device via a web GUI, makes it easier to program. And that is something that you'll see, obviously within our lineup, you'll have most server devices can be controlled via TCP IP. Hence, that's how most of the drivers communicate with Blustream products. So let's move on over to video over IP. So video over IP, we talked about the Olympics using the IP200 series product that you see here. And since that time, the range in the last year, 2 years now, really, I should say, has expanded substantially, because we're finding that, the IP200 is great for some applications, but it isn't great for everything. Now, the one thing you will notice about the different lines of video over IP solutions that we have is that the I/O structure, or the inputs and outputs, are the same, right? You're going to get HDMI, some USB functionality, of course, is going to be a necessity for keyboard and mouse, or other functions like, mass storage devices, flash drives, etc. So you get USB, you get IR extension, you get RS-232 extension, you get CEC functionality, you get all this, and it's same across the line, right? We've seen this from a lot of competitors where you see, okay, this is just an HDMI extender, this is an HDMI with the USB, this is an HDMI with RS-232. So you don't need to worry about all that with Blustream, right? Every single bit of that I/O, right, the inputs and outputs for everything is going to be built into every single platform, which means the experience is the same across whichever line that you use. And in fact, the control experience, how you integrate the products, is going to be the same. So once you install one IP system, you essentially know what you need to install any other IP system. So then how do you select between the different series? So we have the IP50 series, which basically tops out at 1080p. So 1080p solutions, we see, certainly ubiquitous applications in more commercial or volume installations where we need to address a lot of displays and a lot of sources. The IP200 and the 250, and we'll talk about the 50 here in a second, but that 250 and 200 series really bring us up to the 4K realm. So video over IP over 4K. It can handle 1080p. But in a mixed scenario where we need to do both 1080p and 4K, it's perfect for that. And then the IP300, which is where I'd say really where we want to be, because this, as a recent addition to our IP family, gives us full 4K 60 capability in and out of this system. In addition to that, in fact, we've got a firmware that was released on this that also adds ARC capability on this platform. So now we've got ARC transport within a video over IP system, and that's in the IP300 and 350. The IP500, I won't spend too much time talking about. That's STVOE, runs on a 10 gig network. But these are for more commercial applications, you can see from the examples or verticals that we really kind of, as an example or a sample perspective where we kind of intend them to go into. You'll see STVOE, that IP500 on the far right, really designed for medical, high-end residential where you need uncompromised video or uncompressed in many cases, kind of like similar to what you'd see with like the HDBaseT extender. We talked about the VS3K stuff. That's really going to be used for that. But for other systems, IP50 tops out 1080p, perfect for corporate digital signage applications. Moving into 200, we start to see really moving into some basic residential, but that 300, like I said, that's really where the sweet spot is, right? Because we can do full 4K 60 444 on a 1 gigabit network, right? And that's all important. A quick comparison sheet, and like I said, I'll have this presentation available later if we want to dive into this, but I like this page because it kind of gives you a brief look, and you can kind of drill down into each of these sections and see, how the kind of technology stacks up. So for example, I've got certain compression type because I want to make sure that I'm using the least amount of compression because fidelity is super important. Well, there you go. the IP500 is your option there. Whereas the IP50 is going to have the highest amount of compression because of the technology used. Same thing for bandwidth and latency, et cetera. So depending on the need of an installation, this chart kind of helps us drill down on where we need to go. Now, how does this all set up, right? How do we get it, working and function? We've got, of course, these great IP systems, these transmitters and receivers, of course, that work, but we need a controller. And this kind of methodology isn't dissimilar, right, than other manufacturers, because really what we need is a single point of contact for our control systems, an easy way to get the system set up, right, and a way to a lot of times segregate the traffic, right? In many cases, whether it be residential or commercial, we're building a segregated network, right, that hosts our video over IP products because we don't want to intermix that bandwidth and that information really onto an existing network, right? In some cases, we do that, or we do that and we VLAN it off where we can separate the traffic that way. But in most cases, you're setting this up where you're splitting the system. So this diagram shows you a little bit of an example here where we've got an existing system or platform where we host our normal network. That's at the top there, where we've got all of our other equipment, our standard networking that we've got going on. Our control typically is sitting on that network. That then connects to our controller. And then from that controller, it relays out then to the video network that we've created that hosts all of our video over IP equipment, right? So really what this device is, it's a bridge, right? It's a traffic manager. It's a traffic cop. It gives us an interface to talk to with the control system. It also provides us an interface that we can log into and see from a day-to-day operations use. It has something that we call drag and drop, where you literally get screenshots of all the inputs and outputs, and you can drag and drop using a web GUI, using an iPad, using any kind of device that has a browser built into it. You can tap into it or download the app from the App Store. That's certainly there. And that provides you with a basic interface to do your routing right there. And it facilitates the ease of setup, right? So this system literally sets up in a matter of minutes where you plug everything into the network. You plug it in, you turn it on, right? Because we have PoE, of course, available on all of our products. And then you run the wizard interface on here that basically just runs you step by step and says, are you ready to go? Yes? Great. Let's start setup. No problem. It'll go out and find everything, automatically assign IP addresses. And then from there, you can rename things, mess around with the EDID. You can change the scaler on the output because you know that you've got a mix of 4K and 1080p, things like that, all from this platform. And there are two. There's the ACM 210, which is viable for all the important ones, I think, that most everyone will be concerned with, the 50, the 200, and the 300 line. And then, of course, there is the 500, which is really relegated to that SGVOE. So just know that it's there, and definitely this is a product you're interested in. Let's have a conversation offline about this because it's a great solution, and we are building on that platform. But again, it's not the one that's primary for most installations that we've dealt with. Now, who do we work with in terms of switches, right? But you'll find that many manufacturers in this space, there's a limited number of really ICs that are out there that manage video over IP and do it well. And so, of course, there's a similarity because many people use similar platforms. But what I have seen some manufacturers really kind of pigeonhole themselves by saying, listen, you've got to use this switch. And a lot of times that's born from not really understanding how the technology works. I've been building on this one ASIC platform from ASpeed, for almost a decade now, and it's standard multicast, which means any manufacturer that typically has, it's a managed switch solution has the ability to run this. Now, some certainly work better than others in terms of their hardware capabilities, but know that we're not going to tell you no. If you like working with Ubiquiti or Netgear or Arachnus or Luxel, it'll work on those systems. And even if there isn't a guide for it, and we do have a lot of guides for a lot of these switch manufacturers that show you step by step how to set that up, no problem. You give us a call, we'll certainly get on there. I mean, I've dealt with Extreme Networks, Juniper Networks, all sorts of different networking manufacturers, and because it's standard multicast, that's one of the benefits of being in this realm, right? Of video over IP and knowing this technology. Is the fact that we can get it to work pretty much on any kind of network. But again, we have the guides that are available, so definitely use them. They're there that show you how easy it is to get in and out of a system. All right. I particularly, and I like calling this out, and I'm not being paid by Netgear if anyone asks, but their AV line of switch products makes it very easy because they do have the AV interface basically allows you to set up basically profiles. Out of the box, the stuff that we need to operate for video over IP are turned on by default. It's multicast, IGMP snooping, etc. they're turned on by default, which a lot of times I get that question like, hey, I'm getting into the video over IP space. What's the easiest way to get in? Look at the Netgear line. It's a great way to get started. They're typically a little bit more expensive. However, you've got everything kind of set up. And I've got guys who are dedicated. I want to do Cisco. No problem. The CBS series of Cisco products work excellent. And we've been used in a lot of large scale installations, right? So beyond that, we've got how to set it up using, obviously the switches. We have the transmitters and receivers. And then, of course, beyond that, we need to make sure we have accessories like rack mounts. So you can, of course, get them and obviously dress them up so they look nice in a rack and they're set up and they're properly organized. So we have rack mount accessories as well, like the RSU2RU, which gives us the ability to put 4 different transmitters or receivers, doesn't matter, into a rack. Now, since we use a unified enclosure architecture, which basically means that they're the same size, well, the IP50s, the 200s, 250s, 300s, 350s, and the IP500s as well, all fit into the same amount of space. So this one rack applies to all of them. Again, making it as simple as possible in terms of, listen, you know what? We got one rack mount accessory. It's the only thing you need to order. So beyond IP, there are matrix solutions. And these matrices, a lot of people you'll hear this, well, you know what? I don't use matrices as much these days. I use video over IP. Why is that? Right? If we look at the reasoning why we use video over IP so extensively nowadays, it's because you remember those 5 tenets I mentioned a while ago now, those 5 tenets, extension, splitting, switching, matrix, and conversion. All of those are great that we have individual products and we combine some of them. But video over IP is one of those that gives us all 5 of those functions in a single platform, which means it's a chameleon, right? It's a jack of all trades. You can use it in pretty much in any installation. However, is every installation appropriate for using IP? And the answer is no. We know to date, for example, especially in smaller IO formats, right? The old school traditional matrices, 2x2s, 4x4s, 8x8, 16x16s, still have a place today. From a cost standpoint, for one, certainly in formats typically 8x8 and below, having a matrix and using a matrix still nets us the best picture quality because we're using technologies like HDBaseT, which in many cases are uncompressed, versus IP is always going to be compressed, unless we're talking about SDVOE, right? So really, this is still a viable solution. The disappointing part, I'd say, is we've seen a lot of manufacturers in this space kind of exit the category, which I shouldn't be sad about because Blustream is very active still, which means we have product to provide you, right, in terms of having these matrices products, right? So not only from a cost perspective, but again, from a picture quality, like I just mentioned, and then from a control standpoint, and the fact that we can incorporate other things similar to video over IP, like audio matrixing and things like that, are going to be available in these as well. And Blustream very heavily, especially like our UK side of the market for Blustream is very much residentially focused, where they have still a lot of customers who are in that space using these tried and true solutions every single day. So we're continuing to build solutions like you'll see here in a second with matrices. So we have your basics, 2x2s, 4x2s, 4x4s, and 8x8s in terms of a raw HDMI matrix. That's HDMI in and out, right? Because we need these because we're gonna use kind of like Lego blocks, different pieces, maybe individual extenders. Maybe I need a coax here. Maybe I need fiber optic there. Maybe I need to combine this with a splitter. So you have these as a basic building block of matrices. But more importantly, HDBaseT matrix solutions, which include matrixing and extension, this has an extensive line within Blustream because most applications need that. If you're going to put in a matrix, you need to extend it, like I mentioned earlier on, right? Because your TVs aren't going to be located 8 feet from each other. They're going to be throughout an installation. So we have the Contractor series, which is our basic lineup. Then it moves to the Essential, which adds some audio functionality. The Custom Pro, which is a fully customizable. It actually skews closely to like a Crestron DM, but know that you can build a custom kind of chassis, very similar to video over IP. And then beyond that, we have the Platinum series, which is the creme de la creme, so to speak, the highest end solution that we offer. And this one is very much residentially focused in terms of its capabilities. And last but not least, we have an essential product that uses the latest HDBaseT 3.0. So let's look at these lines, right? So what you'll find is in the Contractor series that gives us the basic HDMI extension. So this is, I just need HDMI extension with some basic control. So IR is here. Of course, IP control is here, as you'll find on all the Matrix products. What you're going to see here is we have a 44, a 66, and 88. So very popular I/O breakouts, very traditional in that sense. But the C44 comes in a kit format. In fact, any part number that you see within Blustream that has kit attached to it means it includes the transmitter and receiver. together. Right, so that's a full package. So if you have a small installation, a small residential, or a small light commercial, or we sometimes call it resi-commercial kind of application, where we're doing a small business like a coffee shop, or some other small business, that's great because it's in a kit format, 4x4. Everything's included in the package. When we move to the larger IOs, that's when we start getting into like, hey, I need to customize this. I don't really need all 6 outputs. I might need 5. I might need 4, but they might expand. So I don't know. No problem. Pick up a 6x6 or an 8x8, and you only need to purchase the receivers that you need. Now, we certainly have recommended receivers for these, but know that HDBaseT, if you're familiar with it, if you're following the HDBaseT standard, it's a standard, which means we can work with all the different TX and RXs that Blustream offers, right? The only differential might be that some use a different power standard, right? But we can certainly account for that. So we do have recommended receivers for those 6x6 and 8x8s. Definitely contact 21st or Blustream and finding out what's the most one, talk to them about your solution and what you want to do, and they can point you in the right direction of the receiver to use. But if you're doing 4x4, get the kit. It's already all there, right? Moving to the Essential line, which really essentially adds matrixing capability for audio. Right. So not only, of course, do we get great audio video, matrixing capability in terms of HDMI in and out, but we've built into these platforms the ability to also matrix audio. So in many cases, the only thing we need to pair with this is a zone and audio amplifier. For example, if we look at the last one, the HMXL88 ARC, which in the name you kind of surmise it has ARC capabilities in it, you can actually, from the audio break-in on the chassis, pull audio from any of the inputs. That's static audio, right? That's audio that doesn't change because you want to have the availability of any of those inputs, their audio formats or sources. Great. But you can also pull audio from the outputs. What is that? That's zoned audio, right? That's switched audio. So if I have, something plugged into audio output 1, and I tie that to HDMI output 1, whenever that output 1 switches, the audio coming out of that will also switch. So it's great pairing it with just an amplifier. So that's switched audio. I also have the ability to pull in audio remotely from the ARC channels. In other words, so at the receiver side, I can pull in ARC all the way back from the receiving side, whether it's optical or HDMI, and bring it back to the chassis and then break it out there. So essentially, at the top end, that 8x8 has a 26x8 audio matrix baked in because the chassis also has some audio inputs, right? So 8 inputs, 8 outputs, 8 ARCs, plus 2 on the chassis. That's 26, right? So we have a lot of ways to deal with audio when we bump it up to the Essential series. So this comes in a 4x2 format, in a kit format. These I've seen used ubiquitously in conference rooms, small huddle rooms, for example. The 4x4 ARC kit, which is a new lineup for us, brings us into a 4x4 that adds things like the audio as well as RS-232 control capabilities as well. So it's a bump up from the contractor. And then 6x6 and 8x8 that don't come in kits. But like I said, these are the ones where we can customize with a solution, right? With a receiver and the number of receivers that you want to use. Moving on from that, we have the Custom Pro. The 8x8 and the 16x16, these, as the name suggests, are customized. You can go in here and customize a specific solution. You need a 6x16, you can do that, right? So because it's customizable, a lot of times we can benefit from the fact that we can keep costs down as compared to an IP system and get the full benefits of uncompressed video in and out. And the fact is there are some scalability with this as well in terms of saying, hey, if we want to expand and we're starting out with a 6x16, we can put in additional cards. Now, the nice thing about this platform, other than the plethora of different cards that we have for this in terms of HDBaseT in and out, HDMI in and out, even dual cards that have the ability to both do HDMI and HDBaseT as an output, so we can do as large as a 16x32, is the fact that this platform doesn't require any kind of configuration, right? We want to make it as easy as possible. So you get cards, you populate them into the chassis, you turn it on, and you're pretty much ready to go. Right? It's just that simple. And of course, you can find directly on our website an application guide that shows you, the different cards that are available and shows you kind of where everything is situated on the back panel of these, where you just slot everything in and turn everything on. Right? So as simple as possible. Moving beyond that, we have that Platinum series. Now that Platinum moniker, we typically relegate or we leave that to, a product that really has the highest feature set amongst any of our products. So the PLA 88CS, it's a little bit long, is a Platinum Series 8x8 matrix. So here we've increase the number of HDMIs, or you can see we've got dual HDMI and HDBaseT on the output, right? We have all the audios that you'll find in the, Essential series. It's got IR routing, it's got IP, it's got, in fact, also 2 HDBaseT inputs as well, so we can bring sources from a different location into this. So again, think source device in another room, media player, signage device, Apple TV, whatever it is, we can bring it in essentially into this matrix. But more importantly, we've got the ability to downmix. Now, the downmixing on here is actually quite extensive. Not only can we do Dolby Atmos and DTSX and basically, of course, bring that down to 2-channel, we can turn around and take that 2 channels and then mux it back into the HDMI to send out to another location. Why is that important? Because where I've seen other competitors kind of fall flat with the fact that they can bring in and downmix at the chassis, that's a lot of times where it dies, right? Or where the output is. So you can downmix and then you can output out an optical or an analog output and then put it into a distribution. But you know what? I want to use that TV in my bedroom. I want to use a TV in my bathroom, in the kitchen. I want to use the speakers that are on there because we're putting in a display there. Well, you can't do that with those competitor products because you have to pull the audio out of the chassis. Well, here we can take that downmixed audio. We have 8 DSP engines, so 8 of any of the sources, inputs, outputs, ARC, whatever. We can downmix it to 2 channels and then tag it back onto HDMI and then send it out via HDMI to those displays, right? So basically taking over whatever audio is there and then putting in that downmixed 2-channel track. At the same time, downscaling that from a 4K to 1080p, for example. That's all there. So it's a great piece, especially in residential, where we can mix and match. I've got 4K in a media room, great, no problem. But I want to take that multi-channel audio 4K source and put it on a 1080p display 2-channel. Can I do that with this? Yes, you absolutely can. Right? So 8 full DSP engines that you choose how those DSP engines and where they're being applied. You have that available on here. In addition to that, it has LAN serving. Now, why is LAN serving important? So if you're familiar with HDBaseT and heard of 5-play before, the ability to take all your I/O, so power, audio, video, that's HDMI, control signaling, Ethernet extension, right, is that LAN serving here. So I can feed this a network connection and then distribute that out to the TVs. Right. So again, smart TV applications where we need a hard line that we want to use to make sure that we're getting it in. We're not relying on wireless, right? We want a hard line connection, no problem. LAN serving. So this is essentially a 5-play product in a chassis. That part of it, I want to say, is unique, but we don't see a lot of matrices with that essentially built in, which leads me then to the last product we'll talk about today, which is this, brand new. These are just releasing. They'll be available April 1st. It's going to be the HMX44, ATG, and 88. So in a 4x4 and an 8x8, these outputs for HDBaseT all use that VS3K uncompromising chipset that gives us uncompressed HDMI in and out. So in those installations, where we want to make sure that every display and everything that we've got going into this system is uncompressed in and out and extended in and out uncompressed, here we go. This has VS3K featured on every single output for the 4x4 and 8x8. In fact, we also have 2 HDMI outputs on this platform, along with all the essential series necessities like audio distribution on this platform as well. So these will be coming out brand new. We're the first organization that I'm aware of, and I've obviously done quite a bit of research when pricing these out for the US, then from a competitive standpoint, and then talking to the Valens guys, we know that this is the first HDBaseT full-blown matrix with featuring VS3K on the outputs. Right. So again, another example of where technology sits. Is this going to be the most appropriate for every single installation? No, but again, that's Blustream. We have obviously products where we see fit into certain applications, have the feature sets that we know they need. So we partner with these technology manufacturers like HDBaseT to do that. So there's a lot here, guys. We covered a lot. There's a lot of products. So hopefully you keyed in on some, you wrote some down. Definitely reach out to 21st Century or Blustream so we can have deeper conversations. If you haven't noticed, I love to talk. So I'd love to have those conversations. Let's open it up for questions. What do we got? I'll hand it back over to you to Randy and Mark.
Yeah, we got Chad asked about what's CSC. I had another one too. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the chat.
CSC, if you want to take a look at it, just a little deeper explanation on that.
Yeah, so CSC is really chroma subsampling. So the easiest way to explain it is, and you may have heard of this. I mean, I can go to a whole conversation as to what the 444, 420. They're basically, think about it as the easiest way I like to say is like almost like color compression, in a sense. So we employ CSC on products because until HDBaseT 3.0 came out, everyone using a VS010, VS100, VS2K chipset, right, the Caligo stuff, we're limited to 10 gigs. So how do we get 18 gigs to fit into 10 gigs? You need to compress it somehow. And there are various methods. Valens wants us to use something called DSC, display stream compression. It became a little bit more of an expensive endeavor to incorporate the secondary chipset to do that. So CSC is a much more cost-effective way to do that by basically taking, if it's 444, and subsampling that down to 420, right? And by doing that, we actually cut the bandwidth essentially almost in half, right? Because we're cutting the chroma, which is the actual coloring. We leave the luminance alone, right? So the luminance data is there, but the chroma we cut down in half, so our bandwidth is actually reduced, and then we send that across the link. So that reduces our bandwidth, allowing us to get the full pixel count in terms of like 4K, et cetera, across that link, but by then cutting down on the chroma data. And then, of course, on the opposite end, you'll see it as a 444, but, like anything, once that data is gone, it's gone. But it is a way, it's a compression method. Now, other manufacturers I've seen use something called VLC. It's a line-by-line compression, which, they're all lossy in some way. I like CSC because it retains the video pixel itself, the pixel resolution, but it's really the color. And if you've ever seen a 420 image, and I bet you have, because guess what? If you've ever watched a Blu-ray or a DVD, those are actually stored on disk as 420, right? So you're already at 420, and most people, not everybody, most people are hard pressed to see the difference between a 444 and a 420. The really differentials happen in high contrast areas, like this blue in the background. You might see some artifacting on there, but also with motion going on all the time, it's very not something that most people can see. So anytime we talk about compression, by the way, guys, it's subjective, right? There are objective ways to actually measure it, like SNR, data. You can actually do this, but in most cases, it's a subjective conversation. And you, as an end user or using it, can you actually see that compression? In many cases, it is visually lossless, right? So, and by the way, if you're in the broadcast field, they've been using chroma subsampling for decades, right, in a way to help store content. It's a bandwidth saving scheme or a way to do that. So that is CSC in a nutshell, right? We're taking 444 down to 420. And so any moniker you see in a product line for Blustream that has CS in it uses CSC. If you want uncompromising, go with the VS3K stuff. Hex 18G, Hex 18G ARC kit. That'll give you bit for bit in and out. Next question.
Last one. We were running up on time. You're doing a great job.
Running on time. Yep.
So just talk a little bit more about the chat feature for 24/7 chat feature that we could utilize. After hours during on a job site. Are these? If somebody has a question, somebody's going through some sort of troubleshooting issue, they jump in on the chat. They start talking to them. Are these? Are they going to be able to call them if they need to? These are like professionals that they're talking to here.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's not like an end user
outside the U.S. Outside the U.S. time zone, though, you go on the Blustream website. If you're talking to live chat already and it's outside the normal U.S. Central Time operating hours, you can ask them to convert it to a call, and they will call you from the UK. So after the way the U.S. sits is actually after the UK time zone, before Australia comes online in the afternoon. So, if you're 6-7 o'clock, you'll likely talk to our Australia team. And our Australia team is the basis really for all of our operations in terms of engineering, et cetera. And these are engineered products. These aren't something that's bought an OEM, right? These are products that are actually engineered and specified with us, from a it's got a PRD and there's a DV, EV, and CV process, right? Or EV, DV, and CV, PV. So, you'll talk to those guys directly in the latter hours. In the earlier hours, you'll talk to the UK team. Both of those teams have been doing this longer than the US has in terms of from an age perspective, but you're going to be able to talk to these guys who've been doing Blustream for years and years and years. So definitely, if it converts to a call, great. Or just call them directly. In that case, you'll be calling a UK or Australian number or EU number. But other times, like I said, they'll call you, right? Get on a live chat, talk with them. If it's an issue that they feel that they need to jump onto a call with, they'll do that.
Yeah, very good. It's just with this category, there's so many variables. You're dealing with sources, displays. We just need to know that if there's something going on, Blustream is there to support the integrators for whatever funky issues arise. We know with HDMI, there's a lot of that. So, Jason, I really appreciate it. This has been very informative. Randy as well, thanks for handling the chat. This is going to be available on our YouTube page. It's going to be available in our virtual conference center. Very beneficial. A lot of exciting new products to come from you guys. We just saw a few of those today with the eARC extender. So looking forward to what the future holds for Blustream, and really appreciate your time and support. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks, Randy.